circle bright, weave your web of dark and light, earth, air, fire.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Witches of the Moon, Season 13. We are in Week 7, and this week we are discussing numerology. Now, a lot of you may be very familiar with this, some of you might be new and maybe kind of confused by numerology. It is rather a broad topic. So what I want to talk about today is just the basics of numerology and why we utilize it or how it can be utilized in the craft, and how do you get down to like base numbers. So when you look at the universe, everything in the universe is based on mathematics. It's all numbers. Numbers are a universal system for communication. When you talk about computer code and that kind of thing, and even the signals that we're blasting out into space with the hopes that some intelligent society will find our message and interpret it, it's all done in binary code, 1 and 0, right? But it's numbers, not a spoken language. Numbers are very universal and therefore are very magic. And as witches, we put a lot of value into specific numbers like 3 because of the triple goddess and triple god. Also, the number 9 because it is a multiple of 3. 7 is often a number. If you look at the Bible, 7 is mentioned as a number also, right? You had 12 apostles, which is a multiple of 12 disciples, which is a multiple of 3. Right? 3 times 4 is 12. So numbers being universal are magical in and of themselves. So we utilize a system of numerology to allow us to incorporate dates, names, etc. into our work. We also use it in terms of timing of spells. So certain days correspond to certain numbers, certain aspects of different things correspond to certain numbers, so we break it down. Essentially, we're looking at numbers between 1 and 9. Now, I'm going to share the system of numerology that I learned. I'm sure other people have other ways of doing it, but it kind of breaks down to the basic. And this, in case you're wondering, I am pulling from Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft by Dr. Raymond Buckland, the now late Raymond Buckland. May his soul fly in Ammonia. And on page 39, he has a section on numerology, and he has this chart. Okay. So you see each letter of the alphabet corresponds to a number. Now, obviously, if you're using a different language like Russian or something that's Greek-based that's not Latin-based like we do, your system for numerology may be different slightly, right? But basically, you only go 1 through 9. So the letters may be different. There may be more options for letters, but the system is going to work the same way. So each letter corresponds to a number, and we add up the numbers. So for example, say you wanted to figure out what your specific number is. I'm going to do a demonstration. Basically, we will take each single digit letter, right, and single digit, add them up. If they make a multiple digit, you break those down into the 2 digits and you add them up. So, for example, my name is Natalie, right? So if you look on your chart, N corresponds to 5, A corresponds to 1, T corresponds to 2, A to 1 again, L corresponds to 3, I corresponds to 9, and E corresponds to 5. So then I would take 5 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 9 plus 5. Okay, so there you are. Okay, then you would add all of that up. Now, I am not a math person. I understand that math is the universal language, but I'm not a numbers person. I went into speech for a reason, and so I choose to use a calculator for speed and accuracy. So that number is 26. So you break that down into 2 plus 6, right? Okay. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And that gives you 8. Somehow that doesn't seem right because I'm pretty sure oh, you know what it is. I know what it is. Never mind. Now, that's just the number for my first name, right? If you have a middle name, when you do your name and you try to figure out your number, you're actually supposed to use your full name, add it all up, and then break it down. So if I was going just by Natalie, the magic number for Natalie would be 8. So say I knew somebody else named Natalie, and I wanted to create a sigil for that person to incorporate in spell work, whether protective or maledictive or whatever. I could utilize the number 8 into that sigil in order to add a boost of power to it and to give it something specific. A lot of people will use numerology to find out if a date is a good date or if a location is a good location for moving, relocating to, or engaging in some activity. Say you have a big presentation that you're going to do, or you're going to launch a class or a new business, and you want to find a date that's going to be good for that, right? A number that corresponds to that. You want to make sure the date that you're starting that business on is really good. So say, for example, your business was called The Apothecary, okay? And you are thinking you're going to launch on March 17th of 21, right? Okay, 2021. Now, when you're doing dates, you want to take the full year. So it would be 3 plus 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1, right? Sorry. So then you would take your T corresponds to 2, H corresponds to 8, E corresponds to 5, A is 1, P is 7, O is 6, T is 2, H is 8, E again is 5, C is 3, of course, A is 1, R corresponds to 9, and Y corresponds to 7. So you've got your numbers here. So you're going to add 2 plus 8 plus 5 plus 1 plus 7, right? So let's do that. 2 plus 8 plus 5, right? Plus 1 plus 7 plus 6 plus 2 plus 8 plus 5 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7. Okay, so that gives me 64, right? Now when you add up 6 plus 4, what do you get? You get 10, right? So 1 plus 0 is 1. So the magical number for the business name, The Apothecary, would be the number 1, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to add up your other, say the date you want to open. So 3 plus 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1, right? Gives you 13. Then you're going to add 1 plus 3. So the magical number for your business opening date is 4. So you may want to figure out a different date that would correspond to the date of your business for an opening. Now, that's not to say you absolutely cannot open on that date. There are some people that are super superstitious about that, and they will not do something that doesn't correspond. But you could find another date, maybe move it up, move it down, figure out a date that corresponds to the number of your business, or add something to the name of your business or whatever. And of course, at that point, you've probably done all the paperwork and incorporation and everything, so whatever. But that would be one example of use of numerology in the system. So a lot of people will utilize numerology when they are trying to pick a craft name. So what you want to do is you want to find a craft name that corresponds to your actual name. And for that, you would utilize your full name. And if you're married, both your maiden and your last name. If you're divorced and you have remarried, I don't think you have to include your previous spouse's name, but you would still want to include your maiden name and your current last name, is my understanding, just to make it the most accurate you can get. So if you were going to do that, then you would add up all the numbers for your name, right? All the letters, and it takes a little bit of time to write them all out, look at the chart, correspond it. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write a blog on this, I think later today or later this week, and I will include the number chart in my blog. So If you are interested, I will put the link to my blog in the down bar, and I will try to have that blog post up right after this video posts so that you can immediately go to that and download that chart if you want to do that. But a lot of people will then find a craft name that they like. And here's the thing is, if you find that you're off by a number or two, take a number out, add in a number, figure out what you need to do to get that name within the same kind of numerological, and it has to do with those correspondences and the vibrations and the energies that surround certain numbers and spaces and so on and so forth. So numerology is also utilized in astrology. Obviously, we've got dates and signs and so on and so forth. So it's such a broad topic. I'm trying to find a way to just kind of narrow it down. And I think that that's where I'm going to leave it at right now, is just kind of the basics of how you calculate something for numerology. I recommend investing in a really good book. Like I said, Buckland's is where I first learned to use it. It's how I selected my craft name. However, it's more extensive than what he covers in here. He gives you just kind of the basics. So I recommend looking for a really good, legitimate book on numerology and really absorbing that. But take your time with it because it's quite vast, it's quite extensive, and it gets really detailed. But that's the basics of how you can do something. So if you wanted to do a spell on a certain day, you can find out whether that number, corresponded, if that date corresponds to your spell by giving the spell a name and seeing where it lies energetically. Again, I don't think it's critical that you do that. It just is one of those other correspondences that we do that adds a little oomph to your craft. I think when picking a craft name, it's important to utilize a system like that because it will ensure that the energy of the vibration of your name matches the vibration of the name you were given at birth or soul. And some people don't like the name they were given at birth. So if you want to select a new name for yourself, see if you can find one that corresponds to your birth date in terms of your day and time of birth. So that way you can find a name that matches where you were at that point in the universe when you were brought forth into this existence. So anyway, that is the basics of numerology. Basically, you add up your numbers, you find the correspondence, and you go for it. Thank you so much. You all have a wonderful day. Blessed be.